Warning! You're watching Dr. Todd Lee TV, where theoretically you could learn a bunch of cool shit.
Why don't you tell us your backstory, the origin story of Dave Lee?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't really have any interest in science early in my life. I was a musician. So I was primarily a drummer, and then I got sick of setting up the drums and packing them down after shows. And my friend from school, who was a drummer also at the time, gave me the option to jump in on vocals for his band right before we did an album. And that was kind of my full-time thing. I went to the Western Australian Academy of Performing Arts, got a certificate in contemporary music, and then realized that getting a full-blown degree in music is a waste of time. So I ended up getting a business degree in commerce and kind of ran that for a while. I was doing Facebook campaigns back when you could first do like the targeting and the retargeting from the website visits and stuff. And everything was kind of going really cruisy. And then one day I just woke up like I'd spun around on a chair 50 times, fell into my wardrobe, never really had any health stuff going on. And that continued for years. I had severe vertigo. Every doctor told me it couldn't be fixed. Everyone told me it couldn't be recovered. It took me a year and a half to get a proper diagnosis. And then they said that vestibular neuritis can't be healed, the nerve's damaged. So I went back to university. I started testosterone replacement therapy out of desperation to be able to get through what looked like a hopeless rehabilitation journey. And got a postgraduate diploma in biomedical science, proceeded to start a master's in neuropsychiatry as a science. Realized that I wasn't interested in drugging people. I thought I was going to learn about how to heal the brain, not how to prescribe a whole bunch of nonsense. So I dropped out of that and eventually put together a protocol with some rehabilitation using BPC back before people really knew about it. Once I did that, I didn't really have any interest in doing anything else except for helping people with their health. So I did health coaching, but I thought I kind of made up health coaching at the time because no one was really doing it. And I wanted to advocate for TRT to spread the awareness of how it was what a lot of people were looking for. And over 5 or 6 years of doing this all day, every day, forever, wrote a few books, graduated to, I guess, being what I would call an educator. I trained a lot of practitioners all over the world. I own a clinic in Australia, a clinic here in Europe, and I have some partners in the US. And now I primarily educate. I still work with some clients, but I mainly try to educate on a lot of the similar stuff that you do, which is how to do this stuff right, because a lot of people need it. A lot of people are doing it now. And 99% of people are doing it wrong. And I don't know why, because it's not that complicated.
I know why. It's because the TRT model, yours and not included, is you got this guy who's like, oh, look all this money I could be making. So he basically is either opens a TRT clinic and hires a medical director that doesn't know their ass from a hole in the wall. And then they get bodybuilders to be customer care representatives. And so they're basically telling people to do one harpoon injection every 4 days with 100 tests and a half of an Arimidex. And then the doctor doesn't know any better, so he just signs off on it because it still fits within the legal guidelines. Cut ahead 8-10 years later, that's the standard. So there's this blind leading the blind emperor's new clothes situation going, where they're all meeting summits and basically conventions and pat each other on the back about what great job they're doing the same stupid bullshit that makes no sense. And because they got the biggest clown of them all and his sidekick, Robin, are now co-authors with the anabolics textbook, that you have the dumbest, least educated people in the space writing the textbook for all of these TRT clinics. So even if you were a doctor who's under 30 and open-minded, and you decide you want to learn how to do it right, the only material you have is the anabolics book, which is completely wrong.
Mm-hmm. When I came to the Olympia a couple of years in a row to speak and doing some like educational workshops, the stuff that like, I guess I'm in my echo chamber of people who also know what they're doing. And when I was presenting the idea of like breaking up injections and just the basics, like, not using Arimidex and addressing the underlying, health problems that people are having. It was like people's eyes were just wide at this idea of just what I thought everyone kind of worked out 5 or 6 years ago. Because in Australia, there's like less than 10 clinics. In Eastern Europe, there's one, which is my clinic. And then when I came to the US, I hadn't been before, and I landed, and in the Uber, there was an ad on the radio for TRT. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this is crazy. And when I was staying with my friend Ali, I was like, there are more clinics within a 5-mile radius of your house than the entire country of Australia. This is just, it blew my mind. So I wasn't aware of how bad it was because, I mean, I've been educating on how to do it right for a long time. And I didn't realize how massively, massively ridiculous the industry is and how many people are having probably more harm than good done to them by these ridiculous protocols. And, as I said, my undergrad's in business. And as we said on the last podcast, it's a much more efficient business model to sell 3 things to 100 guys than 1 thing to 300 guys. So they have this whole fries and the Coke model. Like McDonald's don't make much margin on the burger. They make margin on the fries and the Coke. If you can get a guy on like a discovery call and then freak him out by saying, oh, you'll be infertile if you don't take HCG and you'll grow tits if you don't take Arimidex, it's like the easiest sale ever. And then it's a reoccurring revenue. So it's a very unethical, extortionate business model. And I think that there is a warm seat in hell reserved for people who exploit people who are looking for medicine. I think that that's just fucked.
What's also extremely unethical is for a doctor to sell drugs. That's why we have pharmacists. Because then you're incentivized to prescribe. And these worthless sons of bitches prescribe Testosterone and other secretagogues because they know the patient can't afford the GH, but you're prescribing something that isn't a drug. And so all these ignorant people, they think they're getting prescription peptides when peptides, research compounds, a peptide is a protein-based hormone. It's not what people think it is. People think peptides are something that is an illegal anabolic steroid. That's what they think a peptide is. And you can't prescribe these peptides, these secretagogues, because they're research compounds. They're not real drugs yet. And if they were real drugs, it'd be a different story. But they're not. These compound pharmacies are buying them from a wholesaler out of China, the same wholesaler that's selling them to all of the gray market sites that are research compound sites. So these guys are paying $200 a pop for Testosterone because they think it's cheaper than GH. And it's like, no, you dumb shit. You're paying more money for the Testosterone than you would be the GH.
If GH was cheap through the pharmacy, secretagogues wouldn't exist because the only benefit of them is that they're cheaper. I mean, I think that kind of everyone has to go through this like red pilling of realizing how fucked the traditional medical system is because it's all just business and it's not ethical business. But I was very mind blown in terms of how a lot of these countries handle these research chemicals because I'm looking at them and be like, these haven't been approved. These haven't even been studied in humans yet. And it seems as though as long as the pharmacy can make it, the doctors will just prescribe it until they get in trouble. Like I thought that things had to be approved first. It turns out you can just prescribe whatever the fuck you want. And then you might pay for it later if you get audited. But in the interim, you can make some good bank. So if you find a doctor who doesn't give a fuck and they just want to make as much money as quickly as possible, and then you get a whole bunch of influencers and give them an affiliate code for it who also don't know or don't care about what they're doing, you can create a really profitable, really harmful business. And people like myself and people like you, I mean, we're here to basically, I mean, I try to put out as much educational, affordable, and free content as possible that people can actually understand so that they can read this stuff and at least be able to have an informed perspective before they get sucked in by these clinics.
Well, part of the problem is people think I hated peptides back in March because I did a video that was talking about how they're just terrible students. They don't hear what you say. They remember how they felt based on what they thought you said. What I was saying was I hate secretagogues and peptides because they're bullshit and everything is just a poor man's GH. And then I went on to say how the HRT clinics are ripping people off, and instead of prescribing GH, they're prescribing secretagogues at 100 times the price. And then they're prescribing MK677 and semaglutide. So they're prescribing you something that increases appetite and then something that decreases appetite. And so they're all crooks. And so people who are previously my friends were mad because they thought I was putting them down because they had affiliate codes to peptides. Whereas I didn't have a negative opinion of MOTS-C. I like MOTS-C. I like melanotan 2. I like BPC 157. I like TB 500. I'm pretty fucking sure I said that in the same goddamn video. But because it was at the end of the video, these dumb fucks stopped listening. It was a 90-second video. It's not my fault you've got TikTok brain and you stupid son of a bitch can't listen for 90 seconds to hear the whole thought. That you get butt sore and then just shut it off and throw your phone against the wall because you're an emotional wreck because you fried your brain on trinacetate at 100 milligrams every other day. But like there's a lot of really good peptides, but when people say peptides, generally they're talking about secretagogues, which are garbage.
Mm-hmm. And it's also about the context and the application for it. So when I was dealing with this nerve issue in my inner ear, I basically landed on this idea that if I had an intravenous stem cell infusion that could help, which was like 30 grand or 40 grand, and I had no money, but I was like, I'll get a loan, I'm desperate. And I booked in with this doctor who did it, and he took the appointment, and he walks me in, he goes, I'm not giving you a stem cell treatment. And I'm like, then why am I here? He's like, I had what you had. And I was like, holy shit. And he's like, I can't prescribe this. You didn't hear this from me, but this is what you need. And he writes down BPC 157 on a piece of paper. This was like back in 2017 or something. So, this was very novel at the time. And that combined with all the rehab and all the supplements I stacked with it, because like what you've talked about before, there's an entourage effect when you combine things with different pathways to achieve the same outcome. 1 + 1 = 3. And, that saved my life. But now I'm seeing a whole bunch of people being like, oh, just run maintenance low dose BPC all the time to help you with gym recovery. I'm like, yeah, that's a good sell, but that's fucking bullshit. And it's my friend Dr. Keith Nichols said it a while ago. He said it very well. He goes, all the stuff that people are looking for peptides to do in the wrong situation is what growth hormone does.
Right.
And I was like, that's exactly true. If you look at all the things that people are trying to achieve with just, oh, I want to take peptides because I heard about it online and sounds cool. And, I want to, whatever. I'm like, what you're looking for is growth hormone. These peptides are incredibly beneficial if they are indicated for a specific purpose. But otherwise, the only benefit you're going to get is a hole in your wallet.
What I get all the time is people who got a hold of me. They're like, I saw your videos about Masteron and it sounds great. I want to try it. I'm like, well, then you didn't understand the videos at all. I'm saying that Masteron is a good drug to use once you've exhausted testosterone and you can't possibly use any more testosterone before it gets toxic, because Masteron is testosterone's less toxic little brother. It's not stronger than testosterone. In theory, it could be weaker than testosterone. It's something you would add in to get a clean anabolic effect once you've maximized testosterone and GH. You haven't maximized testosterone, you haven't maximized GH. Furthermore, you don't add drugs until you fail in the gym. Your logbook indicates you're still getting stronger. You have not failed.
Yeah, and it's the same with the TRT stuff, because I mean I have like a I guess interest in steroids from like mechanistic theory, but I'm exclusively a bioidentical hormone kind of person. And I get guys all the time being like, oh, I want to push up my TRT dose. And I'm like, you want to feel more masculine. So you've attributed the idea that if you take more testosterone, it's going to make you more manly. And for people who aren't initiated into the space, like I can see that logic. I mean, it's wrong, but I can see the logic. And they're in a scenario where I'm like, no, you've already got your testosterone levels through the fucking roof. The reason why you don't feel like the man that you want to be is because you're not living like that guy. You're not doing all this stuff, and you're not the outcome of someone who's done that consistently for ages, that has built themselves into this person with bravery and resilience and courage and integrity and all these different things. And upping your TRT dose past the point that is at the upper limit of their human physiology, which is not the fucking reference range. I mean, that's just stupid. But once they get past that point, it's like, you're just going to get side effects. You're not going to get what you're looking for, because they're just wanting to basically inject something to do the character development for them. And I'm like, I understand the desire to do that. But the problem is they'll find a doctor who'll just do whatever the patient tells them to do. And then they go back to the doctor and they complain about the side effects of the things that they twisted their arm to do. Whereas a good doctor or a good practitioner, if someone doesn't benefit from something, I mean, I thought the Hippocratic Oath was real. I thought there was this do no harm thing, but apparently that's not a thing.
It's a myth. You don't have to say the oath. I did the oath, but I'm the only one I know who did it. So right. The other thing is, that's what I say all the time. Like, people will be ready to buy, and then they're like, oh, well, I got to go talk to my wife first. I'm like, let me get this straight. Your goal is to take testosterone to become more masculine, probably because you want your wife to find you attractive. And your solution is to go ask your wife permission to become more masculine? Whose money is this? Mine. Then why the fuck do you ask her what you do with your money? They're like, well, I want to stay married. I'm like, do you want to stay married or do you want to be a man? And then they'll be like, well, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what they are too stupid to realize is if they were assertive and masculine in behavior in the first place, their wife wouldn't have stopped fucking them. So they wouldn't think that they need the shot to be more masculine, so their wife goes back to fucking them. But nothing is more castrating than to ask permission from your basically a non-working employee. Like, if you support your wife and she doesn't cook and clean, you have a maid and a nanny and all these other things, all she is like an adopted adult. You adopted this adult that you pay for. It's like, who the fuck is she to tell you what you can do with your money? Now, don't get me wrong. I've had guys come to me and say, hey, my wife makes all the money. It's her money, so I have to ask her permission. I'm like, okay. And in my mind, I'm like, that's still not masculine. All the testosterone in the world isn't going to make you feel like a man if you're your wife's ward, if you're like Robin to your wife's Batman. Like, so these men, they have no concept of even what masculinity is. And then they think that they can fix their marriage problems by shooting up on test, or I don't have much of a sex drive. And why? And then they start using testosterone. It's like, my sex drive still isn't there. I'm like, dude, you're 50 years old. Do you think maybe you're just bored of pussy at this point? Like, how much do you have to have before it's just like, it's not fun anymore? It's like, you ever notice how little kids will watch a Disney movie over and over and over and over and over, and it never gets boring? But if we watch a movie twice, we're like, okay, I'm good. I don't need to see it a third time. Maybe once every 10 years, you watch your favorite movie. It's like, after you've had sex with the same woman 5 times a week for 20 years, you've had sex with her, what is that, 250 times, 5,000 times. It ain't going to get any more fun. At some point, it's going to wear off. So it's not, and after it's 50 girls, whatever, the 51st girl is not going to be the magic bullet. It's not going to be different this time. It's going to be the exact same as the other 50 girls. That the sex drive thing, they think they're not men if they don't have this overwhelming sex drive. And it's like, no, you just grew out of it. It's just, at some point, roller coasters aren't fun anymore. Once your body fat's under 10% and you're 200 pounds, roller coasters suck. You feel like you're in a pinball machine. If you're 40 pounds and you're a big blubbery blob like a child, that's like 50% fat and 50% muscle and bone, bouncing around in that seat is fun. But if you're 200 pounds, that's 4 times as much force that's slamming you into the hard, what do you call it? Fiberglass and metal.
It's something that comes up all the time. And I think that, so one of the things I was originally interested in one of the other reasons I wanted to look into neuropsychiatry is that I wanted to work out why so many people just had this like low grade kind of depressive syndrome. Like, they didn't want to kill themselves, but they didn't want to get out of bed kind of thing. And I really think, and a lot of these guys, they don't need a prescription for more testosterone. They need a prescription for The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi, and they need to read it and understand it. But when it comes to what these guys are seeking, they're just seeking novelty. And there's the human brain is wired to novelty to some degree, but when you mature, I think that the real thing that we all need that kind of overrides all of that is that we need to be proud of ourselves. Like, being proud of yourself is the best. It is the panacea for mental health issues. And then, Jordan Peterson says it very well, which is that, like, competence creates confidence. And when all these guys they tell me that they're anxious, I'm like, you're not anxious, you're afraid. And you're afraid because you're incompetent. And you're incompetent because you haven't applied yourself, because you've been chasing novelty this whole time. And, going back to having like the libido that you had when you first found out that your dick worked, like, that's not going to improve the circumstances of your life. That, if anything, that's just going to make it worse.
I always say, do you want to become a heroin addict? And they're like, no. I'm like, why do you want? Okay, so you don't want to have an addiction to a drug that's readily available, that has a fixed price, has a dealer that's happy to deal. Then why the fuck would you want to be addicted to something that has no dealer available? And even if you do find a dealer, she may not sell it to you. That sounds extremely frustrating. I feel that this is going to be unpopular. The whole economy of genitals is set up so that the vagina is worth more than the dick. And the reason that is because women pressure men into thinking, if you don't have a higher sex drive than me, you're not a real man. So that there's this peer pressure that men have on them from society, really it's women, that they need to constantly be going and trying to have sex with women. Then on top of that, women, because they're not that good at manipulation, verbally abuse men by telling them all men care about is sex and all men blah blah and are cheaters, and they put men down for having the sex drive that they want them to have, because the higher they've convinced men their sex drive needs to be, the more power the woman has sexually over men. Because if women didn't have power sexually over men, then men would have no reason to pay for them and support them. If the genitals were equal, women would probably starve to death, because most of them don't have jobs that pay enough to meet their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen so many guys, I think it's Sterling Cooper who has the saying that the red pill's a suppository and it gets bigger the older you take it. And that is one of the truest things I've ever heard. And, you can use a condom to protect from, sexually transmitted infections, but you can't use a condom to protect you from getting entangled with a girl with borderline personality disorder. And the worst thing that these guys do, and it's so prevalent, I mean, it's prevalent all over the world, but particularly in Western countries, is that they become entangled with someone who's a sociopath and who is an abuser and who is actually has an antisocial personality disorder. And their best case scenario, they get on a complete awful trajectory and their life ends up not being a life that they're proud to live. But worst case scenario, they get slapped with a lawsuit, they get slapped, God forbid they get pregnant, and then they end up in a broken home relationship where they're now entangled with someone for the rest of their life who's mentally ill and destructive. And it's so common, especially with, these guys are fishing in a poison pond on Tinder, and it is so common and it is so risky. And guys will vet a woman to marry her, but they won't vet a woman to stick their dick in her. And it is just as potentially risky. And you see how these outcomes go. Guys don't have their lives together. They're just chasing approval of women who are never going to be approving of them. Rich Cooper has that very good saying that women hang out at the finish line and fuck the winners. And men don't realize how true that is. And I really believe, just from my own experience, because I just cruised up until my kind of, I was like 26, 27. I was just like, I'm just going to do the least amount of work I can and just, kind of just chill and play video games and hang out. And then I got this real fire up my ass being like, no, I want to get to the point when I'm, 40, 50 years old where I've built a life that I'm really fucking proud to live. And I can honestly say that I almost got derailed by these kind of women a bunch of times, but I was fortunate enough that I pulled out of it before there was a big problem. And I can't say the same for a lot of other people I know.
Yeah. So I think I finally just gave up. I had always wanted to have kids. I'd always wanted to have a family. I didn't always like the idea of marriage, but I did like the idea of being a dad.
Mhm.
And that basically set me up to be involved with women who had kids. So I would have these great relationships with these children, these stepkids, and I would put up with their completely dysfunctional, selfish mother. And then she would get jealous of how much I cared about the kids and that the kids preferred me for parenting. Like they bring their report cards to me. I'm the one who teaches them how to tie their shoelaces. When I cook them dinner, they eat it because I actually make them their dinner the way they want to eat it. Not just, I'm going to slap together some shit and I don't give a fuck what it tastes like because I'm not eating it. And then I'll just yell at the kids if they don't eat it. And when they don't eat it, and I'll give them sugar, and then I'll get mad at them for running around and being obnoxious before bed. It's like, no, I would make a specific meal for each of the kids. At one relationship, I had 3 stepkids, and one relationship, I had 2 stepkids, all under the age of 9, all 5 of them. So, like, that was great. I love being a dad, but the women are such toxic monsters that you can't really have a healthy relationship in America, I think, anymore with American women. And if you could, they're probably already married to someone else. So unless you're willing to steal a woman away from another man, and if she can be stolen from you, or unless you get them so young that they haven't turned evil yet. But then at that point, all of society looks down on you because you're dating someone less than half your age. So I'm aged out of the equation. That at 46 years old, there's no one who's single and sane and young enough to be marriage material. Either they're already divorced and they hate all men because they think all men are like their ex-husband, or they've got 3 kids or 2 kids. So at best, you will be 4th or 5th most important person in their life. There's them, their kids, their dog, their mother, then there's you. But you have to pay for all of them? Fuck that. It's just, people say, oh, you're cynical. It's like, when you're 46, come talk to me about how close-minded I am, or whether I have an accurate assessment of my life. And I'm not saying this will apply to anyone else, but I don't think that unless I become a different human, I'm going to get different results if I was to try again. When I tried Bumble a few months ago, because that's supposed to be the less trashy dating app, every single woman was late. They were late with no makeup on. They didn't do their hair, or they were on time with no makeup and their hair wasn't done, and they brought their kid with them. Nobody took it seriously. No one showed up on time and prepared and ready. And then all of their accounts say looking for long-term relationships. So when you start talking to them about long-term relationship and trying to define what type of relationship they're looking for, they're uncomfortable, as if it's too much too quick. It's like, this is a fucking wife interview, you dumb idiot. Why would, if you're coming to a wife interview and this is supposed to be a husband and wife interview where we're interviewing each other for long-term compatibility. That is the purpose. And they're like, oh, that's too much pressure for a first date. It's like, no, you're just too much of a flake. That you're 40 something years old. You ain't got time to waste. You have no money in the bank. You're 40 years old. You have no job. You don't have anything to bring to the table at all. You should just show up, at least put together, and try to make this into a functional interview for a husband, rather than just, hey, it's a free meal, fuck this guy, which is, I guess, the way they approach it. So I'm pretty much burnt out on it. And I would say that I'm so over it and I so don't care anymore. I find it ironic that you bring up Rollo Tomasi. He actually started following me. And so I messaged him. I was like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. And so we've become friends because he likes Warhammer and metal. and lifting. And he didn't even know I knew who he was. I was like, yeah, man, I've been a fan of yours for a while. First time I saw you, you interviewed Michaela Peterson, and you nailed her to the wall about how she ditched her husband to go hang out with Andrew Tate. And then you brought up Jordan Peterson too. So it's all full circle.
Yeah. So I almost got married in Australia, and I, obviously don't want to say anything bad about my ex-fiance, but it was my mistake in not being able to select a woman who would have been a good wife. And I'd like sold my house, and I was staying in this hotel room. I was getting this tattoo done here, which was all done like stick and poke, so it was done dot by dot. So it took like 100 hours. So I was in this hotel for a month, just getting tattooed 3 times a week, just devastated that I just like fucked up a whole bunch of my circumstances. And it was right when I think it was this was like 2020, like right when kind of the world went to shit and everyone became an idiot. And I watched hours and hours of Rollo and everyone in that space. And as a result of it, I basically sat there and went, you learn the red flags and you learn the green flags in women. And I basically sat there and went, there was this girl I dated in Lithuania where they still actually have traditional proper values, and they actually, want to be married and be wives and have that traditional relationship dynamic. And this woman was so sweet and good to me when I was still doing rehab for my brain injury, when I was a fucking mess. I had nothing to offer. I had no money, and she was so good to me. And I was like, I'm going to go back and see if she's around. I mean, I came over here for other reasons, as soon as I got here and, we started dating and we got married a year and a half ago. And there was so many processes and qualifiers that I put her through. And a big part of it was going to her house and meeting her parents and seeing how much her dad loved her mom, and seeing how there's just so much love and loyalty that she was raised by. And that's just not in the West anymore. Like people in the West will often be like, oh, if you get married, you can just get divorced. Like, we don't have that mentality here. It's like, yeah, if you do something horrific, the relationship will end. But this is, once you get married, it's like you can't just move on because, oh, you want to go and like live your best life and see what else is out there. Like, it's like over here, I mean, we get down to like minus 25 degrees Celsius in winter, and it's fucking dark for like 7 months of the year. Like, you need each other. Like, this is a poor country. This is a harsh country. And like, people team up here out of necessity. And when you have these proper strong bonds, like, I mean, I'm 32, like all our friends are married, and it's so different. But in the West, when I see these relationships, I'm like, the man is not leading. The man is not capable of leading. The woman's not capable of following. And if she was, she wouldn't be following him. There's so much, I see women disrespect their husbands like in public all the time in front of their friends. And that there's so much shit that I'm like, this is just like, why are you doing this? Like, what's the benefit? Like, what do you have to gain? And it's, my goal over here is like, we live in, a national park on the lake. We've got like a very peaceful spot in nature. There's a castle down the road. Like, I don't really see anyone or speak to anyone. I love that no one in my country really speaks English very well, because I don't have to overhear people's bullshit. Like, one of the best things about Eastern Europe is you go out for dinner and you can't understand the bullshit people are saying to each other. I come home to Australia and I'm at like the self-checkout, and you just see some woman being a bitch to her husband and people just saying all this horrible shit to each other. And I'm like, I don't want any of that. So dating in the West is just, it's rigged against you. Like, the odds of, I mean, all the good women are taken. And it's like finding a needle in a haystack. The odds are so against people. So, and then they go, oh, well, I'm going to move to Eastern Europe and find a wife. And it's like hard mode over here. Like, yeah, they're feminine and beautiful and traditional, but that means you have to be masculine as fuck. You need that polarity that Rollo talks about. But the part that these guys have to start with, and the most important thing that I try to teach them, is that like, you have to develop what Rollo talks about, which is this frame. It's like, you have your view of the world, you have your perspective and way of understanding things, and you bring them into that. And to do that, you actually have to understand the fucking world, because if you're leading and you're blind, you're just going to fuck it up for both of you. And I mean, I see why a lot of these women don't want to follow men, but also like, I wouldn't even want to spend any time with any of them, let alone cohabitate with them. Like, if you're not adding value to each other's lives, and if women aren't soft and feminine and bringing that spiritual energy to the relationship, it's like, why are you doing it? Like, what do you even have to gain? You're just doing it because you think you're supposed to do it. And then the amount of guys I know who are either getting divorce raped or some fucking bullshit court case against them that's just completely fabricated. Like, a woman will be like, oh, you fucked me over, I don't like you, so I'm going to go to the cops and say that you beat me and raped me, and then I'm going to ruin your life sadistically. And it's like, that is pure malevolence. Like, that is evil shit. And unless you really trust someone, I mean, I wouldn't get close enough to them to be able to do that. It's mental.
I actually counsel men that you never let a woman in your house, because once they're in your house, you can't remove them from their house forcibly, even if they're breaking shit. If you have gear in your house, she will call the police and say you hit her and you are on steroids, and you will go to jail. That you either take a girl to a hotel or you go to her house. And if she lives with their parents, you don't date her. But you do not let a woman in your house because you can't get them out. If a woman blocks the door, I actually had to do this with a woman who was a captain in the U.S. Army. And
I listened to this podcast today that you were talking about that. Yeah.
I had, in order to get out of her house, because she was blocking the door, because we were watching one of her drama shows, and this woman's crying because she lost her baby. And so I started crying. So she started making fun of me and called me the FAG word because I was crying. I was like, I've lost a baby like that too. And then she's like, oh, like we all haven't had blood. We all haven't had toilets full of blood before. Get over it. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be talked to like this. Fuck you. I'm done. And I got up and I started leaving, and she ran and got in front of the door. And I was like, you are blocking that door, preventing me from exiting. That is kidnapping. If I call the police on you, you will have a court martial and you will lose your commission. Get out of my way right now. And she froze, and then she opened the door and she let me go. And she's like, real mature. She yelled up after me. And that was it. I never saw her again. But if you go to their house, you can, I mean, luckily she was a cop enough to know I was right. But to think that you have to know the laws of kidnapping, and where there's a difference between domestic violence, self-defense, and kidnapping in order to survive a date is absolutely fucking ludicrous. And there's no reason to even be involved with that subspecies, with that gender. Like, it's so scary that you hear these beautiful stories about people in Eastern Europe, women in Eastern Europe, Asia, South America. And now I'm hearing that when guys go to Colombia to meet wives, they slit their throats and shit. And it's like, well, that country's out. That's where the best women are, and they have a sexy voice, and they're good cooks. Like a mail order bride or a passport bride from Colombia sounded perfect. I was all getting an apartment down there and everything. And then I found out that no, they'll pretty much murder you. And even if they don't murder you, they'll cheat on you. It's like, well, then that's out. So we're pretty much left with Asia. Like Chinese or North Korean women desperate to get out of the communist country might be loyal enough, because unlike every other man on earth, most of us Western men are not physically abusive. So they get a good deal.
It was very funny when I was because of the whole COVID shenanigan bullshit, basically. So if you're Australian and you come to Europe, you can stay in the Schengen zone for like 90 days out of every 180 days. But because I wasn't vaccinated, no one would let me fly back to Australia until they made an exception when, Ukraine kicked off, because we weren't sure what was going to happen over here when that all went down. So I eventually got a flight out, and I got to the border, and they were like, you've been here way too long. And I was like, yeah, I know, but they wouldn't let me leave. So they wouldn't let me back in, and it wasn't the only reason we got married, but basically to continue our relationship, we had to get married. And when we were at like the courthouse in Lithuania, they were like, you're marrying into Lithuania. An Australian is marrying in here. It's not the other way around. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, we have not ever seen this. They're like, usually it's women marrying out. So, it's, a lot of men over here, they go, oh, Eastern Europe's the place to come, and I'm going to find this sweet traditional wife from a small town and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, yeah, Instagram has ruined that. Like I'd been coming here since 2014 to visit my father, and I watched Eastern Europe become gradually
Mm.
westernized over time because of social media, and you could really see it happen. And you know, now you have to be just as wary over here because there's a lot of opportunistic women who have poor intentions. And you know, I know men in my immediate family who, you know, they married the wrong woman from you know, this part of the world or Russia, and the day after everything like legally became their like half their shit in Australia, which I think is like you have to be married for a year or 2 years, the day after they just slap them with divorce papers and they go, you know, I'm taking half your shit. And it's scary when you see it happen because these guys who get brought up like what Rollo says on the, you know, sugar spice, everything's nice, and you know, the Disney kind of fairy tale, and when they get that rug ripped out from under them, like it just completely destroys their whole fucking life because these guys love these women unconditionally. They're pair bonded with them. And then because the woman's broken, she hasn't pair bonded back. And when like that can be disturbing. Like when you look that in the eye and you see evil in the eye in someone that you've loved, like that can fuck you up.
I'd say I'm at that point where I expect it.
Mm-hmm.
That this is I've had, but I'm so much more cunning than they are that even if I'm not dishonest, I still can think dishonestly. So I never engage in things that will have permanent consequences. I always know the angles. I always know the laws. Like I would never marry anyone without a prenup. That nothing, absolutely nothing, is going to be hers. When she comes into this relationship with nothing, if she leaves, she will have nothing, and that'll be that, and there'll be no marriage. We'll go to the Renaissance Festival and have the king and queen knight us, and we'll exchange rings, but there will be no law involved. The United States government will not have a say in a goddamn thing I do. Certainly not my relationship. And if someone doesn't like it, too fucking bad.
Yeah. Marriage contracts are scary. And like a lot of people don't realize what they've signed until after they sign it. Like, I mean, you're not making a contract with each other, you're making a contract with the government. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, unless there is a reason that you have to do that, like let's say, you know, you have to get a joint loan or, you know, for, you know, you have to get like, unless there's an act, like a really good reason, like it's, it's most of the time it is that, you know, it's a risk to a lot of things, just like with TRT and medicine, there's a risk to reward ratio. And the risk is massively out because like I think I'm quoting Rollo again, but like the woman you divorce is not the woman you marry, and that's when you really find out who they are, and it's scary, it's confronting, it's disturbing, and you know when the sad thing is when, like, you know, yourself, you've worked out pattern recognition, you've worked out odds, you know, you've been around the block and you've kind of gone, oh, okay, like, you know, there's a pattern here. But when guys get out of one of those and they just go straight into the next one, I mean, that at that stage, I'm like, this is just an IQ deficiency at this stage. I mean, this is the real problem.
Or, or they're romantic. See,
Yeah,
believe it or not, no one would guess that I'm a Cancer.
right.
It's just that the FBI has determined that the astrological sign most likely to become a serial killer is a Cancer. And that's when you're super sensitive. When you snap, you break bad. So it's like I don't know if I'm capable of having any real relationship at this point. I think I've had so many bad relationships. I am now damaged.
Mm-hmm.
And whether I have therapy or not, I don't think it's going to change my suspicion and my low expectations of what an American born Western woman, specifically white women, will do in a relationship. And it's sad because I've went into so many relationships open-minded, like this one's going to be different, and they never were. And and they even will say at the end of the relationship, they go, "You told me exactly what was going to happen. You said exactly what I was going to do, and I told you I wouldn't. You even told me that we'd have this conversation right now. I did every single thing you told me I was going to do, and I didn't believe you, and you were 100% right about all of it." And I've had that conversation like 6 or 7 times. And it's like, and so at this point, it's like, maybe it's not only women, maybe it's me, but I am me and I'm not going to stop being me. There's no way for me to have a soul transfer. I'm not going to be able to use necromancy and swap my body out. And whatever body my soul is still going to generate this relationship. So if I'm too much in the masculine and all of their male relationships, the guy's like 60% masculine, 40% feminine at best, and they're used to being 40% masculine, 60% feminine, and I'm going into it like 90% masculine. And I'm like, look, you don't need to work. You don't need to cook. We'll get a maid. You don't need to clean. I'll get a maid. I'll do all the cooking. You can do cardio and you can work out. You can compete. Everything will be paid for. You just no hitting, no verbal abuse, no lies. And they're like, that's it? And it's like, that's it. No abuse of any sort and no lies. And none of them can make it 3 fucking weeks. They can't tell the truth for 3 fucking weeks. So then they're out, and then they're like, what just happened? I was like, I caught you lying. That was one of the 3 rules. And there's none of them can do it. They all think it's just, you have too low standards. I'm like, oh, I do. Let's see you meet my extremely low standards. And they can't.
Yeah. I think like when you're in early relationships, you have these like, these rose tinted glasses where you just like, there's, I can't remember who I'm quoting here, but there's more flags than there's more red flags than like a Chinese Communist Party parade. And you're just looking right past them with these rose tinted glasses on. And then in hindsight, you look back and you were like, oh, this was actually the 20th thing that I should have drawn the line at. Because if I look back at all the past relationships I had, the straw that broke the camel's back was not the first thing. It was just that I looked past it because, and it's just a lot of the times, the same when I'm coaching guys as well. And this is something that I found that's really true is that like, because I'm very empathetic and I love people for who they could be. And, when I see the good in people and then I give them the benefit of the doubt, I'm like, oh, you didn't mean that, you were, coming from this place or whatever. And you forgive them when they haven't earned forgiveness. And the problem is that people are not who they could be. People are not the good that they have in them. They're who they are when they're at that point, and they're how they show up. And how they show up is the thing that's going to cause damage to you and can potentially be vindictive and harmful and malicious and all of these things. And it's this romantic, I mean, men are the romantics. I don't think women are romantics at all. I think
Not
men are
at
the
all.
romantics. And when we come in with this, romantic idea from what we've been brought up on with like TV and Disney movies and stuff, and you come in and you see the good in them, and you see that this amazing person that's just got a bit of baggage and a bit of trauma, and they're acting out a little bit, and this and that and this and that. No, they're who they are when they're showing up, and if they haven't done that work and they're damaged, then it's going to end up badly, whether you love them or not. And that can be a really difficult thing to walk away from. But it'll be more difficult down the track if you really get this big pair bond, you financially invest, you cohabitate, you have all these things. I mean, that's the stuff that just ruins people's lives.
If they show up late without their makeup on and you catch them lying 4 times in the first 20 minutes, and you give them, and you think that you can change them, that would be like you have a rotted apple and you think that if you eat it slow enough, it'll go back in time and stop being rotted. Like, fruit doesn't re-ripen. And once a woman's spoiled brat, she's not getting unspoiled. Milk doesn't unspoil. They can get plastic surgery to fix their face, but anybody who was pretty when they were young are usually evil. And then as they get older, they're just now evil and less attractive. So they've expired. That they no longer have what they needed to have. If there was a person who had some type of internal values, like they had enough respect for you to think, hey, he's on prep. He needs to eat at 7 p.m., but he's already pushed the date back to 8 because he's being accommodating to my schedule. He has a very specific diet that he's going to bend the rules and eat at a restaurant, even though he only cooks his own food. And then you're going to show up at 8:50. So you're now an hour and 50 minutes late. And then you're not even ready. Then you're a piece of shit. And if men actually had those standards from the very first date, they would never have problems in life. Because, and then I always say to myself, would you put up with this shit from a man? And the answer is never yes. Men put up with shit from women they would never put up with from a man. So if women want to be treated with the same respect men get, then they need to act as respectable as a man. You need to show up early, prepared, with manners and respect. And you have to show empathy to the other person. They can't just be like, oh, you don't have emotional intelligence because you don't understand everything I'm feeling and thinking. It's like, you haven't shown any inkling at all that you have any empathy towards me whatsoever or respect. Why on earth would I give a fuck about your feelings if you don't care about mine?
Yeah, it's the big thing that when I was, at the time deciding, to get married, because this was a big decision for me. The biggest overarching principle for me was, is this a good person? Because at the time, like, I was 30, 31, and she was 29, 2 years younger than me. I was like, this, we're still, figuring life out. We're still developing as people, but is this a good person? Is this, and my big qualifier was like, is this someone who, and I mean, it's never going to happen, just in case someone's watching this back trying to pin some on me, but is this the person who would help me hide a body? Like, that's the kind of loyalty that I'm looking for. And if someone's got phenomenal morals and values, and we're still both working on ourselves, and we're still flawed in some ways, but that respect is the most important thing. When I was with my ex-fiance and things were super rocky and all this kind of stuff, the conversation that ended the engagement was me saying, it feels like you don't respect me. And she said, I don't respect you. And I said, give me my ring back, I'm out. And that was like, soup, because you invested so much. Like, I moved across the country, I'd sold my house. But I mean, at that point, if I'd continued that relationship, I couldn't respect myself. And then
Right.
I had to look at two aspects of this, being like, why did I select a woman and commit to marry someone potentially who didn't respect me? And two, why am I not worthy of respect? I mean, I have some role to play in this. Like, there's something here that isn't, why she's taking advantage of me. I mean, like, I've, selected to do this. So it's a big thing, but respect is the most important thing. And, now in my relationship, I'm very happily married. I love being married to my wife. And it's because I am on a mission. I'm on a quest to do all this stuff. And she loves supporting me on my mission. Like, that's her role in terms of making my life easier and better and supporting me so that I can apply myself more. Like, I couldn't do any degree of the amount of work and cognitive output I do, because basically, like, I train, I do my cardio mobility, and then I basically empty my brain every day to the point that I'm basically mentally retarded by the end of the day and I can barely speak. And she basically facilitates an environment for me to do that, because she loves what I'm doing and she sees the purpose and the benefit and all the stuff that I'm doing, and she loves it and believes in it and enjoys supporting me doing that. And I'm like, that's the only situation that a relationship works, because otherwise it's just, you're competing against each other. There's resentment. It's just kind of like your roommates that are fucking, and it's just, it doesn't work unless you've got that one shared goal and trajectory that you're leading. And that dynamic has just, people have been deconditioned from that dynamic due to just Western societal bullshit. But it's very rare to be able to, I mean, guys need to get to the point that they're actually capable of doing that. And then finding someone who also believes in that and has that same value instilled in them is very, very, very rare.
So if I look at a business like a machine, that I am the engine, and the other people in my business, whether it be employees, partners don't work, I find, but employees work. Profit sharing with employees, but no controlling interests. That then the machine runs. And then when you get into a relationship, it's like taking sand and throwing it in the gears. It just fucks the whole machine up. because the girl tries to get between you and your employees, tries to poison your mind against your employees, wants to eliminate employees just because they're bored and they want drama. Now, if you could find, I don't even need a woman to support me. I'm 100% independent. I do everything myself. I would like to have a maid. So if I had a girlfriend who actually cleaned and did laundry, that would be way more useful to me than someone who did absolutely fucking nothing, but did drugs and drank all day. But that's all I've ever known is women that just drink and do drugs and do nothing. So if I act, and then if they do have a job, it's it's a fraction. It's like 10% of what I make or less. So it's inconvenient that their job gets in the way of me doing what I need to do, because their whole day of work I make in an hour. So like there's no point in them working at all at that point. So I would just pay, I'm like, I'm going to hire you to not do that. I'm going to pay you whatever you make it work just to not work there. That's your allowance to not go there, because that's getting in my way. And then that breeds resentment, that they actually feel like they have no self-actualization, no self-esteem, but they don't look at the big picture, is that your job is a liability and it's in the way of the big picture. And none of them seem to understand that the more money I make, the higher their standard of living gets. That if I was to get increased in income by 10%, that would double the amount of disposable income that they would have. Because none of them look at a guy based off of his net income or disposable income. They look at men based on gross income, irregardless of liabilities. So they see a dude with a Lamborghini and a huge house, and they think he's rich, but the guy's basically maybe got $5,000 disposable income. Whereas if you see someone who's got a Tesla and an apartment, he might have 50,000 disposable income a month. So it's like that none of them think like that. So I can't think like they do. So I try to teach them how to think and show them the world through my eyes so that they can understand the big picture and be like, you don't even have to be part of the machine. Just don't throw fucking sand in the machine.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So when I moved here to Lithuania, my wife was working at a company called Bolt, which is like a European version of Uber, like a ride sharing thing. And she was like a customer service kind of lead thing. And over here, we don't have like sexual harassment laws. We don't have overtime laws. Like people get paid the equivalent of like 600 to maybe $1,000 a month for working like brutally. Like it's horrific. So one day I set her down and I'm like, what do you make? And she told me, I'm like, okay, if I work an extra hour a day, 5 days a week, I can make that for you. So I'm like, quit your job and work for me. And she's like, what would I do for you? I'm like, oh, I'll work something out. So, at the start, I'm sitting here being like, I don't know what she can do. I'm like, just like work out my emails and reply to emails and just like help me with stuff, because maybe I'm autistic or ADHD or some kind of diagnostic shit, but I can sit online and answer very advanced, biomedical science questions easily. But like doing my washing and cooking and cleaning is like the hardest shit ever, because I fucking hate it. So I was like, just assist me for a couple of hours a day with stuff, and then you'll be able to. I'll match your wage, and we can do that. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to scale my business to what it is and bring her along to basically ultimately, because our relationship is solid and I really believe in it. I'm like, because you supported me and invested in me, I'm like, my gift to you is giving you the life that I'd love to live, which is to be provided for and to be taken care of. And like that works because it's like, the woman, the wife is complementary to every aspect of my business. It allows me to be way more productive, way more happy, way more at peace, because I can focus 100% on the thing that allows us to live the life that we have, because I don't get distracted by just like life admin shit, which I hate doing. And that I think is like one of the benefits of being, I mean, obviously if you're in a relationship with someone who like doesn't speak English, then you can't communicate. But when the partner's English is their second language, I mean, my wife speaks fantastic English, but it's not her first language. You tend to communicate love more with actions because that's how you communicate. And that's how we, communicated, love and loyalty for so many years before we had a common language. And then you can have this dynamic that actually works because you're both complementing each other's lives. It's like, yes, I'm doing a lot more financially, but this stuff in terms of the responsibility and all this shit that she's doing is like that propels this like 10x. It's like multiplier. And I just think that's the only dynamic that works. And I just don't think I just don't see other dynamics working. And then people will say, oh, well, my relationship does. And again, just like you've said, and I've said a million times, exceptions always exist. They just don't disprove rules. And, yes, sure, it does work sometimes, but most of the time, that's what makes a relationship happy because you're both solving problems for each other that you can't solve yourself. And that otherwise there's no need for the relationship. Like it's just, if you're otherwise just business partners, like you said, like when I used to, one of my jobs at university was like, I managed like a local like music venue. And it was an all ages venue, it was at a skate park. And when I started running the program, like no one came to the shows. It was shit. And we ended up selling out the shows every weekend with just local bands coming and playing their first show. It was really cool. And the bands used to get paid like $100 to play the show. And I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I'm going to give a profit split. So headliner gets $3 a head, support act gets $2 a head, openers get $1 a head. And then that way, everyone has a stake in the game to promote the show and do a good job and come back. And then, that's the way everyone wins and I can't lose because I can't be out because it's not a guarantee. And then we can all win because everyone's got investment in it, but I'm in charge. And that's how things have to work, is that people have to have a stake in the game, but there has to be respect and there has to be loyalty. And most people just don't have that. It's like free will. Like everyone's capable of developing free will, but most people aren't at the level that they can exert it because they're just a leaf in the wind to their thoughts.
So I think like if you had a wife that had a useful job, like a lawyer, then you can hire your wife to be your lawyer. Mm-hmm. I have a corporate lawyer for my 4 businesses and I pay him a livable wage. Mm-hmm. So if I was married to a woman, she could be my lawyer. Same thing with, I have a social media manager.
Yep, me too.
That would be useful. I could employ, or if my wife understood and was smart enough to understand what I do, and a lot of these girls I went on dates with, they simply couldn't even understand the core concept of what I do. They just like, so what hospital you work at? Like, I don't work at a hospital, but I thought you're a doctor. I'm like, I know I don't need to work for someone else. I work for myself. They're like, what do you mean? A hospital is a business and a doctor who works at a hospital is an employee of that hospital because he's not good enough to make a living owning his own practice. I own my own practice. I don't work at a hospital. And they couldn't get it. And I'm like, all right, well, her IQ is too low to understand the building. There's no way she can figure out how to get into the building or how to navigate inside of the building or how to remodel the building to make the building run more efficiently. So she's not invited back to look at the building. It's the same thing. It's like if I met someone who is smart enough to understand core concepts, like use enough testosterone to get the estrogen where it needs to be to get the IGF-1 to be where it needs to be, then once that's achieved, introduce masteron instead to drive anabolic if necessary. If they could understand that core concept, which a lot of men aren't smart enough to understand, no matter how many times they watch a video, she could do customer service, or like the blood work. I have a huge bottleneck in service where someone orders a blood work review, but they're not smart enough to order their blood work. And then when the blood work comes, they're not smart enough to put it on the spreadsheet for me to read the blood work. So if I had a customer service person to facilitate those people and get them ready to where when I have the conversation with them, I have the materials to review the blood work. Instead, I have to have a phone call with them to tell them step 1. Then I have to have a phone call with them to have them do step 2. Then I have to have a phone call with them to have them do step 3. And at this point, it's like this should be 4 different consults. This isn't one blood work review. This is 3 consults leading up to a blood work review. And so, yeah, if she was smart enough to facilitate that, she would be useful as an employee. And so it wouldn't just be throwing money away supporting this human that has no skill set. But whether they're a waitress or receptionist and they're making maybe $20,000, $30,000 a year, that's not worth my time to have to drive them to work and pick them up because they can't afford a car. That's a complete waste of my life. Like I will buy you a car and you will have this task, do this task. And that it'll save me time, because the amount of time that it takes me to drive you to work and pick you up from work cost me more opportunity cost than you made in that 8-hour shift. And they don't get that. They think you're an oppressive man trying to control them.
Yeah. And that's just absurd, because it's leadership, and it's the ultimate gift is to provide for, like, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and anyone who's listening who's not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, it's the most important thing you can understand from, like, just how life works, whether it's business or psychology. And the thing that I found when I was growing up, just in terms of like female friends I had or girls I dated, is that stress just destroyed feminine energy, and stressed women were just not fun to be around because they weren't as good at regulating their emotions. So when they were stressed, they just become hard, and they wouldn't have that soft, loving, nurturing, maternal, feminine energy that's just like really just, when you're pouring your heart out to the world and you're on a hero's journey and you're trying, like, you're doing everything you can, like, that's the one thing that money can't buy. It's just like that softness. And when they're stressed, that goes away. And the bottom of the Maslow's pyramid is like food, water, shelter. So if a woman is financially stressed, her feminine energy is just completely gone. And that, if a woman is, making minimum wage and working her ass off and can barely pay her bills and has got all this stuff going on, and she doesn't have the discernment or the critical thinking to kind of realize that if she does the right thing and finds a situation where she can be of use to someone and basically, not partner in a business in terms of like a business partnership, but propel something and use those skills to, really create something amazing. It just doesn't work. And I understand why it doesn't work, because, there's a really good study, and I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but they took 2 groups of farmers and they paid one group a year wage up front, and then the other group got paid monthly. And then they tested their IQ at the start of the year after they got paid and the end of the year when they didn't have any money left. And they found that when people had a bunch of money, their IQ points were 15 points higher, because when they were financially stressed, they were more like amygdala driven, and they were in that fight or flight mode, and they weren't thinking rationally. And that's the big thing. And I see it with guys as well. Like when guys, it doesn't matter how much money a guy is making, he has to manage his finances properly so that he feels like he's not, checking his bank balance to pay the next bill. Like, you can have systems. If people haven't read it, check out The Barefoot Investor. It's got pictures in it. You can look at the pictures and not even read the book and work it out. But when someone is financially stressed, they're lower IQ and they're more emotionally reactive, and they don't make proper decisions. And, someone's going to clip this and make me sound like an asshole, but like, dumb women are very endearing because they're sweet. And it's like, oh, it's cute that, they're a bit ditzy. But a dumb woman will also have a conflict in a relationship, and instead of resolving it, will go jump on another dick. Like, that's where that dumbness can become a real fucking problem. And people need to read The Rational Male, because it's like you have to see it for what it is, and then you have to work out what you want, whether you want to be a womanizer, you want to do the black pill thing, or you want to get married and fight. Like, you can take whatever road you want to from that, but you have to know what you're dealing with, because the biggest mistakes that people make in life is getting involved with the wrong one.
What's the black pill?
Black pill is this like term that they have in that space where you just like completely just check out of all women, all relationships, and you just completely go like,
I know the term is
like nihilism.
MGTOW.
Yeah. Yeah.
Men who go their own way, where you no longer feels obligated by society to be partnered with any woman you can get your hands on, no matter how hideous they are. You're just like, you know what? There is no woman I can get that is above my minimum qualifications for being with me. Then I might be a 2, I guess, in the eyes of women, but my standards for women is a 4.9. If I can't pull a 4.9, I'll be alone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, if people want to do that voluntarily, that's great. But it's when people are involuntarily MGTOW in terms of it's just a cope. I think that can be a real problem. But,
Well, I think
people
it's
can choose their path.
everyone who's MGTOW is basically an incel. It's
Yeah.
just that they might have a high standard incel.
Yeah.
Like, I won't date someone who I don't want to have sex with. If the thought of dating them makes me grossed out, then I don't want to date them. That means technically I'm an incel, but it also means that I might have really high standards. Got girls that I think are a 4, other guys might think are an 8, because when I was much younger, I would get really good looking girls. And now I would not get girls as good looking as what I used to get 10 years ago. So my standards are still that high, but I'm not at that league anymore. So it's just like, do I want to play in a lower league, or do I just want to not play? Do I want to retire? And so I feel like I've just retired.
Yeah. And when people tell me that, I'm like, in the same circumstance, would do the exact same thing. Like, it's because, you mentioned before, it's like maybe you're damaged, and it's like, well, maybe you've been hardened by life and just learned your lesson. Like, I mean, it's there's different perspectives on it. Yeah.
I'm definitely cynical, but I know I'm right.
Yeah.
And I know that all the guys who are saying to me, like, oh, my wife's different, well, she's special, she's not like other girls, I used to think like you, then I met her, and then 2 years later he's divorced. And it's just like, okay, I'm sad about it. I wish that he was wrong. I wish he was right and I was wrong, but I'm just like, we'll see, man. Now, the exception is people who are in your boat, where they met non-Western women, where they met a woman from Eastern Europe or Asia. Those women are actually loyal wives. So that's the exception.
And I also think, and it's difficult, with the age thing as well, but it really, really helps if you're the first man that she's loved. Like, I like it's a big
Pair
thing.
bonding.
And yeah, and Rollo showed it in the studies, in terms of, if you look at like the amount, like the body, as the body count goes higher, the initiation of divorce from the woman's side goes up as well. And I don't think women can properly pair bond that many times. And I would argue that I think that most of them, and again, exceptions, sure, but the first pair bonding is the biggest one. And that's like, I think that's really important. And yeah, that's when I was deciding to date this woman who I wanted to be my wife, I was like, the big thing I learned from the red pill is that, hypergamy, and, women love opportunistically and all that kind of stuff. And, I was like, well, this woman really loved me when I was, I could barely walk. So I'm like, well, that's probably a good criteria to start dating. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered. And when she first started being my assistant, I was sitting there because I wanted to help me with invoicing, because I hate it. At the time I was using PayPal. I fucking hate dealing with PayPal. Stripe's way better. And I was like, well, if I give her access to my bank accounts now, it can be like a litmus test for if she's going to steal from me. And then if she steals from me now, that'll be cheaper than if we have to get divorced. So I'm like, this will be a good shit test. And I've told her that a bunch of times. I mean, she'll listen to this and have a laugh, but I've told her that in hindsight, and she was like, that was probably a good strategy. And yeah, it's tricky. It's very tricky.
Yeah. Like, there is a girl who is so nice and so easygoing and so attractive compared to how awful all the other ones were that I connected with, that she was going to come over. I was going to make her dinner. Most girls now, 10 years ago, girls would come over, you make them dinner, it would be totally normal first date. Now they won't even let you send an Uber to their house to pick them up. You have to send an Uber to a neighbor's house for them to go to it to get picked up. They're so paranoid about, and it's like, well, that's because it's more dangerous now. No, it's less dangerous now. There's less danger. It's just women are more difficult. Anyway, so this one was so nice. She was going to drive over, and I was like, this girl's going to fucking murder me. She's going to try to kill me and take jewelry out of my safe or some shit, because this is going way too easy. And then I was like, okay, well, we'll give it a shot. We'll see. I hid a couple guns in the living room, so if she tried some shit, I had guns ready. And she asked me for gas money. I'm like, sure. I'm like, how much you want? She's like, $40. So I sent her $50. And then she ghosted me immediately, blocked me, and then blocked me on the Bumble app and everything. And I'm just like laughing and stuff. So I told some people because I thought it was funny. And of course, some stupid motherfucker's like, you should never give women money. What's wrong with you? I'm like, listen here, you sanctimonious asshole. I didn't give her money as a gift. I thought she was so poor because she was from Pontiac, she needed gas money. And the money I spent on gas is 1/10 what it would cost to take her to dinner. That some of these girls, if I go out to eat, I have to eat sushi, which means I have to eat sashimi because it's 0 carb. So she'll order one fucking roll, but I have to order a $300 dinner for myself. So by me spending $40 and finding out she's a thief, that's a lot cheaper than me taking her to a restaurant and spending $300 and then not getting a second date. So, and I want to be like, that's why you're a poor piece of shit, is because you're short-sighted. But boy, did that piss me off to have this guy give me shit about it. He was an employee. He's fired now, but he was an employee criticizing my judgment with money. When it was like, I was testing this woman. Is this what all it's going to be? Is this, you're going to rip me off for $40? That's so cheap. For $40, I find out this woman's a piece of shit. Whereas if I took her to dinner, it'd be at least $100, if not $300.
And then especially with someone, like yourself, who has such a, and like one thing that, I was so blessed to be mentored when I was doing my marketing degree by someone who was, excelling in business. And I think he was like, if I asked you to come and like rake my garden on a Sunday in your spare time, what would you charge me? And I'm like, well, my hourly rate is this, so probably 20% more than that because it's my spare time. And he goes, okay, good. He goes, your spare time is worth that, is, worth your basically what you charge plus whatever percent you value your spare time at. And he goes, anything that you're spending your time on that's a waste of time, you're losing that much money as opportunity cost. And like, not only did you save that money, but you also like saved the hours of your time. But also like, one thing I explain to my clients is like, I think we wake up every day with 100 fucks to give. And, that's why like I have someone who manages my social media. I have someone who manages like my email address. Like I have like all these walls set up because like, I had some funny exchanges on the videos that we posted of you on the TRT and hormone optimization channel, because I was just like, oh, I'm just going to light these morons up because I'm bored. But most of the time, like I just shield my mental energy, because I'm like, I can't be wasting all the fucks I have to give on these idiots, because no one has ever had a respectful, successful, intelligent person like leave belligerent YouTube comments. Like that's just not what good, smart people do. Like we have better shit. I don't think I've ever left a negative comment on a video. The only time I'll leave a comment is if I want to be supportive of someone. And because normal, mentally healthy people, if they see something they don't like, they just watch something else. You press the X button. So it's that opportunity cost of not just your time, but also just like your mental energy. Like when you do stuff like what you and I do, like, I don't know about you, but at the end of my day, like, because I basically do a lot of my client work in like an asynchronous fashion. Like I review and provide feedback and then it goes to the doctors. And I work very efficiently, but like I drain the absolute hell out of my brain. Like I don't have that many fucks to give at the end of the day. And I just couldn't be wasting my mental energy on shitbags, because I'd rather use that time to be productive with my business or help people with stuff that they really need help with. And that's the big thing.
What I found was that ignorant comments or verbally abusive comments should be handled differently. But either way, they put me in a bad mood. So that when I do talk to someone on the phone that could be a potential patient, if I'm not in a good mood, they may not hire me. So I'm not going to set myself up to get stressed out. For example, and that's actually a kind of a bad example. I call it emotional energy. That I'm an introvert and I have to spend emotional energy to engage with people, with the exception if it's a deep conversation with one person that's intelligent. I can actually get emotional energy, again, recharge my emotional battery from talking to you. But if I have to talk to multiple people in a casual way, like the best example is a party where you basically go around and you small talk people, that is draining as fuck for me. I would just sit in the corner and eat my chicken and rice. And then people would walk up to you and ask you, like, what you eating? And it's like they can literally see that it's chicken and rice and be like, chicken and rice. And they're like, oh, yeah, I could see that. Then why'd you ask? Okay, asshole, just making small talk. It's like, why would you make small talk? What's the benefit? And like, I don't understand it. It's just the most alien concept to me. So I hate people that make small talk because I feel like they're psychic vampires. They walk up to you and they suck energy out of you. Right? And then so with the same thing with the comment section, so many of the comment section just irritates the fuck out of me because it's the most ignorant bullshit ever. And they're new people, like, oh, they just found you. They've never heard of daily injections. They've never heard of Masteron being in the off season. They've never heard of using long acting drugs. It's like the status quo on everything is wrong. So I can't, and then I have no credibility with this person to win an argument. So I just ignored shit like that. And then ever since I just ignored comments, my life is so much better. I used to try to engage everyone, but it just made me mean. And it was counterproductive. It pushed people away. It doesn't pull them in.
Yeah. I think I heard you say on a podcast you're an INFJ as well. And,
INTJ. I can't stand the Fs. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. INTJ is that's introvert, and what's the rest of it?
Intuitive, thinking, and judgmental.
Yeah. Whereas the F is when people are more
feelings.
Yeah. No, I'm not that one.
Yeah.
And part of the, when I grew up, like I always kind of felt like there was something wrong with me being introverted when everyone around me was extroverted. And then when you kind of do those personality type tests and you meet other people and you kind of, you get to the point as well, like when you coach people, that you realize that everyone's flawed in their own way. Like everyone's fucking flawed. And that's fine if you can learn to play your strengths. And it's when I'm super introverted, one of the things that I've realized, so before I did this, I was teaching secular-based mindfulness meditation to teachers and parents so that they could teach their children emotional regulation. So we were referencing studies. It was completely non-religious, and it was really cool. And one of the things that we observe, and I think everyone knows, is that if you read comments on YouTube, you can have all the best skills of mindfulness in the world. You can know that they're just dickheads who are just sad and miserable and projecting. But we haven't had our brains evolve fast enough yet to actually be able to separate it, to not be real. And when you react and respond to these people, you end up taking on that energy and response. And, I notice like my blood pressure goes through the roof. I get pissed off. I embodied it. I have to calm myself down. And I'm like, why am I even doing this? So yeah, the way that I sorted it out is I just deleted all the social media apps off my phone. Only my friends and family have my WhatsApp. And then if I need to go on Instagram or Facebook groups, I do it on the computer so I can walk away from it. And that works very well. But yeah, I've had so many podcasts go up on like other channels that have gotten a bunch of views. And I'm like, I'm not going to open the comment section at all, because if I open it and someone's being a prick and they're wrong, like I can't go down that rabbit hole, because it's going to ruin my day. And I don't gain anything from that. Like there's nothing to gain, because you can't argue with stupid. That's the most important thing I've learned, is that stupid people will never be able to realize that they're wrong because they're stupid.
Or FJs, because FJs are very strong opinions, grounded in their feelings.
Yeah.
You can't rationalize, you can't educate, you can't convince those people because they've made up their mind based on bullshit.
Mm.
So FJ people are completely worthless. That P people are annoying because they're wishy-washy and agreeable. I mean, I would rather someone who is a TJs exclusively because they think and they make decisions on their thoughts. And I've tried to work with FPs. I had hired 2 FPs at the same time. One was an FP handyman and one was an FP researcher. And they were complete fucking nightmares to deal with. One of them was an hour late the first day, an hour late the second day, 7 hours late the third day, and didn't show up at all the fourth day. That was the handyman. So like nothing got done. And then the FP researcher needed a couple hours a day worth of direct emotional communication to feel special. And it was the most creepy, weird interactions I've ever had in my life. And then he started complaining to other employees about me being a jerk because I wasn't paying enough attention to him. And like really bad stuff. I'm downplaying it. And I was like, yeah, this guy's got to go. Why on earth would you complain to the other employees about me not paying enough attention to you when they're just going to tell me what you're saying?
Yeah.
In writing.
It's like I learned the hard way in life that like feelings don't matter. Like no one cares about how you feel because everyone cares about how they feel. No one cares.
Yep.
And the part that you get to with that is that, you know, at first people who are very caught in their feelings, they might get sad about it, but you just have to get to the point where you just go, well, that's just what it is. And then it's just fine. It's just, okay, that's reality. And the feeling stuff is very difficult. But one of the value, I mean, I thought I didn't have a filter, and then I found your videos, and I was like, oh, I'm very tame compared to you. But the value is that when clients come to us for consultations, because the consumer journey is now so long with social media, people will watch hours of your content for months before they contact you for a consultation. So I used to ask people, because, you know, when I was trained and mentored by some counselors in terms of communication, I used to ask people, I say, do you want me to sugarcoat this or do you want me to give it to you straight? And then everyone always said, give it to me straight, because that's why they were coming to me, because that's what they wanted. So it's very refreshing when, and I often tell people, you know, if you feel uncomfortable, like there's a reason I don't wear a suit in my videos, because it would be inauthentic, because it's just not me. And if you can authentically put out exactly who you are and how you communicate, and people come to you based on that, then you can have recharging conversations with people. Like my consultations are booked for 45 minutes. They typically go for an hour 15 to an hour and a half, because I get amped up talking to people and solving their problems and, you know, analyzing them like an interconnected series of systems and teaching them and, you know, basically critically solving problems. But you put me in a room where I have to make small talk with people that I don't know about bullshit, and like I'm often signaling to my wife, being like, I need to leave, I need to leave, I need to leave, I need to leave. I'm going crazy. I just want to go home and hang out with my dog. And it's one of the best things about living in a country where English is a second language, is that I'll get to an event and people will be like, oh, I'm sorry, we're being rude and we're not, you know, speaking English to include you in the conversation. And I'm like, it's fine. Trust me, it's fine. I'm playing a game on my phone. It's totally chill. And then it's socially acceptable for me just to not be a part of the conversation. And then they don't feel bad, I don't feel bad, and it's wonderful. I'm like, this is so peaceful and it's fantastic. And then when I do have a conversation with someone, like if we're not talking about like, you know, higher level stuff in terms of like, you know, human dynamics or relationships or, you know, stuff that actually means something, it's just like someone is basically plugging in a power outlet into my energy and charging themselves off me. And then, you know, I used to hang out with people who just, they'd be down in the dumps and tired all week, and then they'd have that social interaction on the weekend and it would light them up. And I'm like, I just got back from Italy, and just being in close proximity spaces to other people on the plane and in the streets just drained me. Like I just had to go home and just go into my room, put the air conditioner on, crank Netflix, and just be in the dark on my own. And I used to think there was something wrong with that, but then I was like, no, that's totally fine. Like there's nothing wrong with that. That's and if you're comfortable with who you are and it's working for you, fuck being like everyone else. Like if being like everyone else is the goal, I don't want to play that game.
You can't fit in and be exceptional.
Yeah.
So I've never felt like I wanted to be like other people. I've always looked down on people that were different in that respect. I've always felt that my way was the right way and everyone else's way is the wrong way. And it's like, and people are like, oh, that's so arrogant. And it's like, okay. And then I laugh to myself because I look at where they are in life and I look at where I am in life. It's like, yep, I'm the one doing it wrong. It's like, you got it all figured out, buddy. But I'm enjoying this conversation, but I've got to get my next meal in. So
Go for it.
How do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I am at advancedfundamentalhealth.com. I have 3 extremely affordable $29 ebooks that I put all my IP and information in. If anyone is listening to this and listened through the whole podcast and made it to this point, if you want the books and you can't afford them, email me. I'll send you them for free. I'd rather people have them. I also have an Instagram. I'm Dave Lee. And I have a bunch of videos on YouTube, either on the TRT and Hormone Optimization channel or on my own channel. I try to put as much information up that people can actually understand. I don't use big words to sound smart. I try to teach people. And if people want to get access to me outside of doing a consultation, I've got a long wait list and it can take a while. I have a group called the TRT Academy on School. It's $19 a month, and I do 2 video Q&As a week, so you can ask questions in advance, and the video gets uploaded. You can answer them back. And the reason why I put it behind a paywall is that I put a microtransaction there because I know that if there's a small exchange, then people actually value my time. So it's I try to make as much content accessible or free to people as possible, and that if people want to book a consultation with me, they can. If you're in Australia, we can treat you for TRT with Primal Zone. If you ask us for shit that you don't need, we will not sell it to you. It will get declined. And if you're in Eastern Europe, we have a clinic over here as well, and we're soon going to be servicing Scandinavia. So we're trying to make TRT available in countries that have strict borders, and so that people can do it that way if that's what they need to do.
Awesome. Great to hear that. All right. Because I've heard that Scandinavia, they definitely see steroids as criminal.
Yes. So the way that we have to do it, even if you have a prescription in Europe and you send it across to Scandinavia, it will still get seized and you'll get called into the police. So what we did is we built a pharmacy because one of our owners lived in Norway for a while and he's really passionate about it. So we sorted it out so that we send it to your pharmacy in Scandinavia, which is legal, and then you can buy it and pick it up from the pharmacy. So we're trying to sort out a system where we can do free courier shipping to Scandinavia as well, and all through Eastern Europe. But our biggest goal is helping people out in Scandinavia because you can't order shit, and a lot of people need it. So we're solving that problem, and we want to get it solved in the next couple of months.
All right, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for taking care of people all across the world, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I know we didn't intend for this to be a masculinity episode, but I mean, it can't hurt since that's why most of these people are really using testosterone. They don't really just want to be a drug addict. They want to be more masculine.
I 100% agree. And I think that people think that injecting testosterone will change their mental dispositions. It changes the foundation so that when you apply this knowledge, it actually sticks, but it won't rewire your consciousness. Like, you have to do that yourself. And learning proactively, like, prehab is cheaper than rehab. So, like, finding out this stuff and being strategic before something goes wrong is a good way to do it. But masculinity comes from changing your behaviors and then being an outcome of the person who did that over time. So, thank you so much for having me. As I've said before, I have watched so much of your content that my wife is weirded out about it. So it's awesome to be able to be here and have a chat.
All right, cool. Well, I'll talk to you later, Dave. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thanks so much.